Hey everybody, morning. As Jason said, my name is Michael DiTullo. I'm an industrial designer, and I've been working with Defender almost from the beginning on this product. Quick show of hands, how many people have heard of the term industrial designer or know what an industrial designer does? A couple of people, that's cool. I'm excited how few there are because I get to tell you about what I do. How many people know what an architect does? Everybody knows what an architect does. Well, if you think of what an architect does for buildings, right, and you think of what an apparel designer does for clothes, an industrial designer does that for everything else. So everything in this room, other than the building, was designed by an industrial designer. The chair you're sitting in, the pen in your hand, the phone in your hand, for better or for worse, was designed by an industrial designer. It's our job to work on how a product looks, how it feels, also how it functions, the features and benefits of it, and how to get it to be manufacturable. I've designed a lot of products in my career, that huge thumbnail slide of all the products I've worked on. Most notably, I worked for Nike for about 8 years. This was a product I worked on that was all about sustainability and manufacturing. So this product goes together with no adhesives and everything pops together. This was one of my favorite projects I worked on. This was a boxing boot for the Chinese Olympic boxing team. A lot of gold medals were won in this product. And when they came to me, they were boxing in a 20-year-old Adidas boxing shoe. And I asked them what they loved about it. And they loved that it was light, that it was flexible. And I was like, well, I'm going to give you a product that's 30% lighter, but I'm also going to study the way you move in the ring. And we designed a product that had traction exactly where they need it. And what I love about this product is that it was never mass produced. You have to be a sponsored athlete to get this product, but it's been in limited production for 15 years, which really never happens in footwear. I worked personally with Michael Jordan, Carmelo Anthony, a bunch of athletes on Jordan product. Also with Dwayne Wade. Here's Dwayne wearing a product in the Olympics, doing some cool stuff that I can't do. But in the shoe I designed, so great to see that pop up in news articles. And then I left footwear about 10 years ago or so, and I wanted to learn about other things. I'm probably a lot like you. I like to just be learning all the time. I love different challenges. I ended up working with a bunch of different consumer electronics companies like Google, Motorola. I'm bringing products to market. And I ended up working with some car companies, bringing transportation to market. And so for me, I love learning about all these different categories that I get to work on as a designer. Most recently, I've been working on some really diverse things. This is a product I designed for a company called ARC. This is a $300,000 speedboat that's all electric. This is an acoustic architectural ceiling by a company named Kire in San Diego. And what's cool about this product is it reduces the echoes in big rooms like this, but it's also made from reground sneakers. So we actually collaborated with Nike. We collect sneakers, grind them up into an acoustic material, and so we're taking them out of the waste stream for 20 years at a time. And then this is the watch I'm actually wearing right now, Carpenter. It's a small boutique brand out of Brooklyn. So working across all these industries, I started to notice something. And that, to me, is, again, being a learner, being a curious person. I'm always trying to connect the dots. So I'm working on all these different things. And I think the biggest overarching macro trend I noticed across all these industries is that there's this continued push towards consumerization. And what I mean by consumerization in particular is a focus away from the technical, even on technical products, and a focus more on the user and giving them the experience they want. And this is, to me, one of the key examples of this in the marketplace. I mean, how many of you had a BlackBerry at some point? Right? How many of you have a BlackBerry now? No hands. Oh, great. But when I was at Nike, I was a young executive. I had a company-issued BlackBerry. I mean, there's 20,000 people on the Nike campus. They probably had thousands of company IT-issued BlackBerries. The big innovation that BlackBerry had, this is really the first popularized smartphones, right? Smartphones had been kind of bopping around the industry. This was the first one that was mass adopted. And the reason why it was mass adopted is because they created an encrypted server and they sold directly to IT groups. But while I had my corporate BlackBerry, I also had a personal iPhone, like many of us on the Nike campus. And one day, Mark Parker, the CEO of Nike, came in and was like, make my frickin' Nike email work with my iPhone now. And that news spread like wildfire around the campus. And I went to IT, like so many of us that day, and they had a pile of BlackBerries that they were giving to people that were just garbage, and everybody was using the iPhone that they purchased. Same in transportation, right? Again, we're going from a company-issued taxi to a user-provided Uber. And we're seeing that trend in health and wellness too, right? So many personalized personal trackers, smartwatches that can have kind of health functions. You know, do they work better than a waistband to track this data? No. But the waistband can't work, the chest band can't work if someone's not wearing it. Nobody's going to wear this every day, right? But they are going to wear this. And so again, that trend towards consumerization. Now let's go to something, you know, a little more technical, right? Like you see what's kind of happening at the edges of prosthetics. Again, consumerization, personalization. And so that's why I was so excited when Jason approached me to work on Defender, because I looked at what the competition was doing, and I was like, this is a massive opportunity to bring a product that somebody would actually be proud to wear to a space that's highly stigmatized. Again, looking at what's going on in fashion, right? On one hand, you had those clunky walker boots, but then you go into fashion, and fashion's kind of walking towards us. This is a product from a fashion brand called Balenciaga. This is from Y3. These are highly coveted, super limited edition fashion products. This is happening kind of at the edges of trends. We're going to see this filter into the mainstream. This is like a $2,000 Balenciaga shoe. This is what Kanye West is doing with Adidas right now. Right, so you're seeing like this really interesting moment where this kind of what's happening in medical could actually converge with what's happening in fashion. So when Jason and I started this project 4 years ago, we had a really simple premise. Let's make a protective boot that, one, performs better, two, is easier to put on properly, right? But three, is aesthetically something someone would actually want to wear, right? Because we know, as good as the product is, it can't work if people don't wear it. If it stays in the closet at home, it's not going to be effective. And so with that basic premise of frequency equaling efficacy, we set out to develop Defender. The other thing I love doing, working with companies, I'm not a subject area expert, right? I'm a generalist. Maybe I'm an expert in creativity if I'm an expert in anything. But I love working with subject matter experts and pulling from their brains and figuring out what we can do together. And that collaboration that comes out of that is where all the magic happens. This was the very first sketch of the Foot Defender. Well, there's some cool things, like gesturally, it's similar, but functionally we evolved so much from here. You can see here we still had side bracing going on. The back was more like a sling, and the front was just some open straps. And so, you know, it was a good start, but we had such a long way to go. These are some of the other early concepts. Well, you can see where we gesturally wanted to go, and then we're like, how do we get this thing made? It's just very complicated to make. We're trying to figure out how to make it. This was the second big revision of the concept, still side bracing, but now it has this injection molded bucket, very rigid, but we still were getting too much motion. And then, like in so many projects, there's just a simple breakthrough that comes from frustration. We're going through all these concepts, prototypes aren't working. Jason came to my home and studio where we had a workshop, and I just thought, why don't we stop trying to make this like a medical device and start making it a lot more like a shoe? So in an athletic sneaker, in like a NBA level basketball shoe, you have a textile and leather outer shell, and underneath that might be all these molded components to get the shoe to be rigid where you want it to be, flexible where you want it to be. So, you know, I was like, we're trying and failing so much with these molded components. Let's do a simple very durable rubber cup sole on the bottom, a textile and leather upper like a sneaker, and that will allow us to experiment below the skin and tune everything exactly the way we want it. So this was the first real sketch of what would become the Foot Defender. And then I was like, I'm just not happy with how hard these things are to put on and off. And I was like, let's try something where the whole front of the product is removable. And so our idea was to put a piece of sprung carbon fiber in this white spat, but have the whole thing come off so someone can get in and out of this very easily. Just thinking of someone that might have limited mobility, limited sensing in their fingertips. How can we make sure they put it on properly? And Jason, I don't remember the developers we were working with at the time were like, we don't think it's going to work. And I was like, let's just build it. Let's build some prototypes and test them out. And so from there we had kind of our final real concept for the Foot Defender, and yet so much iteration was happening below the skin. So this, that white piece is an injection molded brace. The actual final one looks nothing like that, but that was an early start at some of the bracing inside. To the other side of the screen, you can see some of the sprung carbon fiber parts. And so while something that looks like a piece of footwear is actually incredibly complex below the skin, but we're hiding all of that from sight. But now that we had our product experience the way we wanted, we didn't want to stop there. We're like, well, we made the best-in-class product. Let's make the best-in-class user manual. I was pulling apart competitor products, and I noticed the user manuals were like something typed up on Microsoft Word, printed out and folded up and just shoved in a poly bag. And I was like, I want something that someone could come home with and refer to very easily. And then let's elevate our packaging experience, right? So, let's make a box that we know space is at a premium in a clinic. Let's make a box that can nest and fit in a clinic nicely and someone can take home. And then we've done so much work creating this kind of consumer experience. Now we need to make a consumer level brand mark, right? So even the branding has to continue to tell the story that this is really focused around the user. Of course, we're doing all of this during a pandemic, right? So this is Drew, who's the developer and factory liaison, meeting outside in the back of my studio in Portland, reviewing prototypes, but kind of keeping all that moving during the pandemic. And I have to say, it's been an incredible journey. I've loved learning about so much of what you deal with every day, and I'm just so proud of the result. I feel like we've truly made something that functions better, is easier to use, and importantly, aesthetically kind of reduces the stigma, right? That someone could feel comfortable going to the grocery store or going to work. You put a pant leg over this and it feels like it's just an Air Jordan. You put a sneaker on the other foot and it blends in. So hopefully by creating something that people actually want to use, will increase the efficacy.